We're together. Wonderful. Good morning, Unity Group. I prepared some remarks here, and remembering that some of us don't have any wisdom on our own. We're putting this together. It's all been said, and somehow we add our own nuances and coming up with something that will be useful. Well, this will be a talk about being astonished, about staying astonished, and being astonished about how astonished you are. And maybe after being astonished long enough, you will become astonishing. So does astonishment have a purpose? Don't ask me that. Don't ask me. But over a good number of years, I've given around 30 talks for Unity and Science of Mind groups. I love you all for your curiosity. We want to hold on to that. It's precious. So I want to mention first some speculative numbers that are afloat in our known universe. The rotation of the Milky Way galaxy is around 225 million years to about 250 million years to rotate once. What difference does it make? To human conscious thinking mind, it matters a lot. But to the divine mind that has everything figured out, maybe there is no difference between a millionth of a second and a million years. Physicists can estimate what happened in the first small fraction of a second of the creation of the universe. They also tell us that the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years. The scale of time we are talking about is beyond enormous, beyond that. I'm setting a stage here. I want to get us used to seeing the everyday world in a different light, a new light. Also, I'll interject here. I've been a volunteer with a hospice program for about 18 months, and a grandfather for 13 months. There's a lot of common ground between these opportunities for astonishment. There's that word again. Here's a little information about the etymology of the word. Astonish. This will be highly pleasurable to some of you verbophiles out there, and you word lovers too. So this is originally from about 1300. This is a verb. Means to stun, to strike senseless. It comes from the old French. To stun, to daze, deafen, to astound. And from Latin, the vulgar Latin, to thunder. So literally, to leave someone thunderstruck. So what is so interesting about the world of an aging person and a toddler? That's what I want to get into today. What do the aging person and a toddler have in common? Because I find myself as being blessed with contact in both of those worlds. The tremendous connection is that young people are in the now, and older people are in the now. The two groups seem to appreciate the infinity of time and space, apparently without realizing it sometimes. If we stepping back from an older person and the toddler, we can see a bigger picture. The two groups seem to slow down time with their curiosity, their patience, their use of their strength of will to understand. An older person will stop and notice that they suddenly taste their food in a new way. I remember my dear mother, who was in the hospital many years ago, was able, she said, to taste what food really was like without the salt, without extra flavorings. What is it like to have broccoli or any vegetable or any food without the flavorings? That's something new for some of us. So, or also HD television that lets me see the pores on people's faces. It might not be so important, but To a person who's never seen it before, that's brand new, highly brand new and informative. I remember how surprised and pleased I was when I learned how to put my hair up with a chopstick. I had returned to school to finish my education at the age of 37. And there I was among people who were much younger than I. They thought it was a riot, to see that I'd be so pleased. But for me, it was like Marco Polo discovering China, and loving it so much that I brought pasta back to Italy. So time is suspended, figuratively, when we are appreciating a new corner of this observable universe. If we are impatient, we might stop the analytical process in any moment. We might try to push the river that already knows its flow, its rate of flow. So, when was the last time you saw an infant or a toddler discover their feet? All of us in the meeting here today have discovered our feet already, sure, but have you really looked at them in a new way? When did you last give yourself a pedicure or a manicure? Here is a new way to discover how to slow time down, even stop time. Take up a new hobby or a craft. There are many inexpensive ways to engage your curiosity. A pencil and paper can give you a chance to create Zen drawings. In effect, drawing from your imagination to create an interior world that no one knows but you. With a pencil and paper, you can rediscover a Mobius strip. Can you draw something that implies 4 dimensions? How do you do that on a paper of 2 dimensions? You'll find out. You won't need anyone to tell you about this. Another craft that I enjoy, and some of you online today enjoy, is the art of music, the craft of making music. You can do it with a fork and a coconut shell. You can do it with your fingers on a tabletop. You can discover the breaking up of time with rhythm or with your voice. You can chant in any one of dozens of traditions and learn how to make sound and music with your own voice. No expense there. You can get a plastic recorder for about $5, or even free if you know a family that's become tired of the shrillness of a simple wooden instrument. There are all kinds of ways to explore rhythm and melody and harmony. And we want to forget about any self-consciousness or embarrassment with this. Nobody expects perfection, and we certainly don't expect perfection from ourselves. We want to become happy with our innocence, because that's the way we open doors. In the psychology of yoga, we have the body, the consciousness, described as an onion. And going under the layers of the onion, what is on the outside? Our hobbies, our circle of friends, the interests we have, daily contacts with people, and the effects and benefits we have from them. That's on the very outside. So if we can get underneath those layers and get inside to who we really are, in my opinion, that's a place where we can have real and genuine and long-lasting knowledge. That's where we can contact the divine. We can't push for that, but we can prepare ourselves for that. And those of us who meditate know sometimes we have very deep experiences and sometimes not. But the earnestness that we bring to the practice of meditation, that, in my opinion, is the most important part of it. Being free of expectations, being in this moment, ready to discover what is the newness in this moment. You can look around at your tabletop or your desk and you can find something new. Wow, here's one of my tuning forks. With this thing, I can go anywhere in the world and I'll be identifying the sounds around me by pitch, relating it to this. This is A440. That means that when I tap this instrument, I can feel and hear that these tines of the fork, these tines are going back and forth 440 times per second. Yes, Neil has one. That's a lower pitch. See, the two ends of the tines of his fork are weighted so that it slows down that vibration. And the heavier the object, the thicker the string, the longer the string or the air column, the longer these things and bigger they are, the lower the pitch. And that concept will be active wherever in the universe we can sense sound. So not only does the musical object you're going to explore, and I know you're going to explore this, but the objects around us, they all have a pitch associated with them. The human body has some pitches associated with it. The lower parts of the abdominal area, lower pitches. And higher up in the chest, higher. In the throat, higher. In the sinus areas, we have higher pitches. And they can all be broken up into sections to give us another universal law, the overtone series. I want to demonstrate something. I'm going to put all of these keys down. All of them. I'm going to close this whole tube. And when I do this, the frequency is a G. You don't have to know that. But it has a name and it has a number of vibrations. Everybody pick that up? That is a pitch. Now, if I overblow this pitch, I can make this air column, this length of air, I can make it break up into other pitches. Not all of them, not everything on the piano is going to sound when I do this. Only certain ones and in a certain ratio to each other. I'm going to demonstrate by overblowing. I'm going to make the air go faster. I did not change anything about my hands. I kept everything closed. Yet, the speed of the air changed, increased, and it created other sounds. And that ratio is going to be the same everywhere in the universe. We call it the harmonic series or the overtone series. And it's a mathematically predictable rate of vibrations. All of the wind instruments have this, especially the brass winds, trumpets, trombones, baritone horns, tubas, sousaphones. They all have that idea. And when they play those 3 or 4 valves on those wind instruments, they are putting into action the other curves of the horn, so that they marry together these overtone series of the other valves. Now, some of this is going to be a mystery to some of you who may not have tried other musical instruments. But here's something you can do. Here, next time you go up to an acoustic piano, not an electric piano, but one that has the harp inside, with your right hand, about in the middle of the piano, you just gently press those keys down, maybe about this width of piano keys, maybe 8 or 10 or something. You gently press them down without playing them. Then, with your left hand, with a little power behind it, you press any one note, any of them, a black one or a white one or an Asian one, an African American one. Okay, I just wanted to see if you're listening there. So you sound that low note, bong, whatever it is. You sound that and you hold it down and then you listen, because the keys that you have depressed have opened those strings, and those strings will vibrate in sympathy with that low note. So somewhere on the lengths, along the lengths of those open strings, they are going to respond in harmony with that low note. And that's going to be sympathetic vibration. Sympathetic vibration. Now, why is that practical? Why do we have to know that? Well, now architects, designers of bridges, designers of buildings around airports, they have to know about how the white noise of the jet engines generate vibrations around them. And sometimes these vibrations will fracture windows. So those windows in airport buildings, they have to be designed to sit in rubber frames so that those sympathetic vibrations are not disturbing the windows and causing vibration that could weaken even the whole building itself. Or wind blowing through the cables on bridges, they generate vibrations. So in building a bridge, it's important to know. When I was in the service in the Army, when we went across a footbridge, we were told, route step. That means break up the footsteps, because it was so easy for a ton of human beings to bounce in a rhythm on that bridge and cause a range of motion that could possibly weaken the bridge over time. So we broke up the weight by getting out of step with each other. And that is a use of the understanding of this overtone series. So you may not want to play a musical instrument or experiment in any way, but these universal laws exist. And once we understand them, it opens doors for understanding much higher mysteries and much lower mysteries. So that's why we're going to use our curiosity to get to know this known world and to use it to amplify the knowledge we have. So I'm going to stop now. And in this pause, maybe we can have some of your wonderful questions or observations about how it's going with you. So how do sound, vibration, curiosity, the old and the young, how do they come into your lives to stimulate understanding of each other? So I'm delighted to have everybody together today.
I'll start with something, John. My daughter just relayed uh, something that her new puppy, golden retriever puppy, did for the first time. The snowfall yesterday. She went crazy. She was jumping up and down like a little kid, you know, burying her face in the snow, eating the snow. Just, and she's teething too, so it probably helps. The cold helps her teeth. But she's like the true puppy she is. She's only about 2 months old, but it reminds us how we acted silly like that sometimes when we had something isn't, like a talk that Leon might give. We jumped up and down and buried our face in pillows and so forth. So yeah, that's cool. Anybody else like to share real quick?
There you go, Zach. I want to say that all these things are connected because I find that if certain young people are in touch with themselves enough, that a lot of them are fascinated with sound waves. Mm-hmm. I've had more than one experience of this. Mm-hmm. Not specifically any one musical instrument, just what they can do with sound waves. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of when we were kids. We'd take, you used to get these old tins. My grandmother had a million of them that a cake or a box of cookies would come in, and we would take rubber bands and put them around that and make ourselves an instrument, and we'd think we were really cool. We'd go out and play it. And then we, began to mess with it. We'd get thick rubber bands and skinny rubber bands and figure out ways to make them sound different, and that curiosity that kids have, it is so, it's sad that many adults lose that
we figure out this is what I'm doing, and this is all I need to know, and that uh, every day, like you say, every day there's something. I learned some things from you. I used to always say, how can you do a bugle if there's no things to, how can you make the notes, um, and I just figured they knew how to play it. Uh, but the idea of curiosity is just, to me, one of the most important things that human beings have, that not that animals don't. I've seen many a curious animal, you know, a, a kitten or a puppy that I've been around trying to figure something out. But also the squirrels in your yard and the and and the thing you just reminded me of so many things, like always I remember after we'd been sequestered in the house for some time on COVID, we decided to go outside and spend a lot of time outside as soon as it got, warm enough days. And Zach and I sitting for a really long time watching these ants that were coming up and like taking parts of leaves and going along with them. And it turned out that they were coming in, and then they would get it. And the ones that were leaving all had a little piece of leaf or something. And that would be something you would walk by. But like you said, it forces you to see the connections of all these things and make you think about other things deeper. And finally, when you talked about the young and the old, I used to work with felons, and it was very hard to get them to see anything outside of the immediate second that they were in terms of their needs. And some point I realized that they were dealing with the things that usually little kids work through when they're young. They were still hadn't resolved any of those things, and how much more important it is for kids to go through those things. And as when they get older, then they're forced into systems and so forth that they're never going to do that. It's too long of a story. But I went back to teaching and with little ones, trying to support their curiosity and their spiritual, emotional growth. So yes, there's such a connection to trying to keep that alive that the little ones innately have. Thank you.
Yeah, Gloria worked with little felons too. She was a teacher.
Yeah, and some of mine were little felons, but mostly they were old felons.
Kids come to school to see what they can get away with that they can't get away with in the home.
Mhm, for
Oh,
sure.
you mentioned insects and the ants.
Hmm.
Well, I visited Panama with the Army many years ago when the canal was changing hands. And
Hmm.
we were down there to snoop and poop and see what was going on. Well, in the dark, at sundown in the jungle, triple canopy jungle, when the sun goes down, it is dark. You can barely see the hand in front of your face. Anyway, we all lay down on a path that we calculated was the right place. And in the morning, when I lifted out of my position, there was a trail of ants under me and under the guy next to me. And they just straightened up and they put up this big fragment of leaf. It looked like the sail of a boat, and they continued walking across. And here I was, a 200-pound man lying down on a little ant, but yet they straightened up and there were two paths. One path of ants with their little fragments of leaf
Hmm.
were going up into a nest nearby. It was the size of maybe about 3 basketballs put together.
Wow.
Yes, and they were building that with mucilage
Hmm.
from these chewed up pieces of leaf. And there was another line going the other way. It was a 2-line highway under us. The determination of life was just amazing. Just to see. Well, it wasn't important to us very much. It was important to those ants. And building that home, this continuous labor intensive project, this tenement project in the jungle. It was extraordinary to see this determination of life,
Yes.
putting that in.
Great example. Mm-hmm.
You got in the way of their natural highway, so they just went right over you. I mean, it's the same thing with how little leaves or little flowers come up through concrete.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nature has a way of not getting back, although she does that occasionally, but
In
just continuing
spades.
on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, you're unmuted. Do you have something that you?
Yeah. One of my master classes in or one of my classes in my master program was a woman who taught us bioacoustics. So she actually evaluates a 2-minute segment of your voice, and she can actually pinpoint what you need and what issues you had. And she even had somebody, a gentleman brought his son to her who had some kind of genetic issue that he couldn't stabilize his walk. So she fed him the frequencies that he was lacking. And when he had the headphones on, he was more stable.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that it's all about frequency, and energy. So
Mm-hmm.
That's marvelous, Frank. It came to my mind while you were speaking about how stutterers or stammerers, when they're speaking, that speech impediment might be really in the way. But when many of them will sing, they don't stammer or stutter. The voice flows naturally. So something is getting out of the way in order for them to sing uninterrupted by themselves. Tremendous study. Frank, do you remember what the acoustic instrument was that this person used to analyze the voice?
oh, actually, it was frequencies on a tape. So they could carry the Walkman around and hear it pretty much all the time. But she's got it down to picking. You got a B12 problem, you got a mineral problem. So she actually was contacted by NASA. They said that somebody was having a problem in the station up there, and so she got a sample of their voice and made a frequency, and so they probably stole it from her. As per usual, the government just takes it when they want it. So
That's
Leon,
tremendous.
you must have something to say. I know you do.
Well, yes, I have something to say. It's barely connected, but two things and a tip. First thing that I'm talking about the connection between the young and the old. I believe that there's a reason why we all go into a higher pitch when we're talking with babies, oogie googie oogie, and because the babies seem to like it, that's the vibration that they seem to really enjoy. So that's one of my disconnected thoughts. Another one is that we're talking about the harmonics being the same throughout the universe, as far as we know, anyway. And that's reminiscent in some way to the golden ratio of mathematics, which is also kind of a universal ratio. And I don't know how that's related or if there's anything to be made of it, but it just brought it to mind for me. And one of the tips I have is I don't know that anyone else does this, but I have tinnitus. And, I imagine everyone has a different vibration that helps. But, for me to get to sleep some nights, I have to find the vibration that kind of cancels that out. And for me, it's Joe Beam, the Brazilian jazz that does it. And I don't know why that would be, but if you have it, try that one night. So there you go. That's
Tremendous information. That series, I know it as the Fibonacci series,
Mm.
where you take the sequence of numbers 1, 2, so that you have two numbers. You add them together, 3, then you add the 2 and the 3, you get 5,
Mm-hmm.
then the 5, and then 8. 5 and 3 is 8, and then you keep adding the previous digit. And then later you get 55 and then 89. Now, if you use those as the numerator and a denominator of a fraction, 55 89ths, you can get that ratio of a line. Very simple. I won't go into it here. But if you swing a perpendicular line down, that bottom line then will be divided into 55 89ths.
Wow.
So with a simple line of string and a straight edge, you can get all the calculations you need for building a pyramid or for strengthening a building. All kinds of things result from that Fibonacci series. Leon, thank you for bringing that up. Oh, there's more out there. I'm seeing the heat rising from your scalps out there in TV land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what came to me was, when you have a youngster, they're all trying to figure out the world outside. And if you're getting older, you kind of go inside and do a little more work inside. So it's
Mm,
kind of full circle,
mm, mm-hmm,
just kind of
mm-hmm,
Oh,
just a thought.
mm-hmm.
wonderful. Frank, also, you mentioned the vibrations and audio sources. You may know of the Monroe Institute. They're a pretty old
Yeah.
organization. They have tapes, and I discovered, um, very nice, good for you. See, you're aware. But they have a number of sources for audio tapes that can be downloaded free. And I have one series. I'd love to work on them with my dear wife. And we're not there together with that project, but to listen to these things before bedtime in a series. And there are numerous series of these sounds. But that can be a mind opening experience too, I'm sure. I'd love to be using some of that soon.
Leon
I guess
talked
that
The,
was,
about
I'm
Leon
sorry.
talked about tinnitus, and hold on, wait a minute.
Well, I was going to interject just again that the system of vibrations for each person is a little bit different. And I'll do something else for a moment. There's a technique called overtone singing. And there are about 7 traditions of this. Now I'm going to sing a tone, and then using my nasal passages and my mouth, I'm going to capture the parts of that big vibration and I'm going to sing some overtones. So I'm going to be producing 2 sounds at once, and I'm going to make a change by changing the shape of my mouth. Bear with me. There's something I'm getting to here, I promise. Thank you, thank you.
I bet you just sent your uh, nitrous oxide levels up. That kind of humming and vibration through and breathing through the nose sends it and dilates your blood vessels. Everybody should hum, breathe through their
Good
nose.
point. I
Yeah,
concur. Good
yeah,
point. You don't have to take a
yes.
shower to sing. You can do it everywhere. Everywhere. It's a wonderful voice, and everything comes from the voice. That was probably a human being's first instrument, the voice. Oh, I'm delighted to have all of your input. Who has not spoken yet? I want to hear from everyone. Ah, I'm hearing in my mind I'm hearing, let's all go home and practice. Let's practice with our sounds. Let's make sounds with our bodies, all kinds of sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I like that throat singing. Thank you for doing that. I've always enjoyed listening to that kind of, you know.
Oh, you're most welcome. It's easy to do. You can use the sound or the word Mori. Mori. So what I do is I first sound with the M, and then I slowly say the word Mori like this. Mori. And I'm going to go, and as I go slowly, I will capture all of those ratios of sound with each other. So it's Mori. You can think of Maury Amsterdam.
Okay. Mhm. And Rosemary, right?
As we often do.
Yes,
I
yes.
prefer Amore.
Sure.
Amore. There you
Yes, Michael Amori
go. Yeah,
at the
yeah.
Cafe Amori.
How about the sound of the
Oh,
Om, John? Why don't you do that?
oh, yes. We can all chant the sound Om together. Now, remembering, though, that probably or possibly the Om sound is the root in the etymology of Amen or Amin. Amen. You know, the Jews and the Muslims say Amen or Amin. Amen. Amen. It's all coming from Om. So I'm going to do that, and I invite you to chant alone too. Don't worry about your tone. You can mute yourself if you want to or not, but it's coming from sincerity. So I'm going to make one long breath of the Om sound, and we're going to use this as a way of communicating with, hopefully two-way, with this observable universe. So we'll take a deep breath and let it happen. It's very simple. Maybe you didn't do it today, but sometime when you're alone, that's when I believe it might count the most. When you're alone, just you and the cosmic, you do that for a while, maybe once or 10 times or 100 times, and see what happens. And when you notice something spectacular, don't tell anybody. Keep it
Mhm.
between you and the divine.
Mhm. Mhm.
John, do you know? A lot of people say that if you go Om, that's the male or the female and the male. Male, I think, was referred to as the Om, but the female comes first,
That's
and
very
then
possible, Frank. I've never heard
yeah,
that connection, male female connected with Om, but yes, it's also pronounced Aum. Three sounds.
yeah.
Aum. And if you do that slowly, that will uncover some ideas about the overtone series.
Mhm.
Aum. So it's probably pronounced variously in different parts of the world.
Mhm.
And there are
Mhm.
about 10,000 languages in the world, estimating, of course. But they probably all have some idea of bringing the lips together. Mm. And there's some wonderful musical languages, like in West Africa, regions there are several languages that use the clicking sound.
Mhm.
Ah, like that. It's in their speech. And it's probably an amazing task to transcribe a language like that, because there are several of those clicking sounds in any one of those languages. You can look
Mhm.
these things up, and there's one
Mhm.
wonderful thing on Instagram where a young man, probably a hunter, is imitating the sounds of animals, and with his speech, he's telling about this bird or that animal and making their sounds. And he's wearing a headpiece that's very hairy,
Mhm.
seemingly a piece of camouflage. Because as a
Mhm.
hunter, he has to break up his outline so he's not obvious
Mhm.
as a predator. But the wonders of sound, even just on Earth, are just spectacular and available for us to explore.
Mhm. That's right. And what I'll take is what you said is time is suspended when we appreciate and when we're astounded. And, looking for those things can when time is suspended, that's when you're making the best connection, so you'll look for those opportunities to be astounded, like you said at the beginning, to create that opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, we thank each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had this thought, instead of astounded, astounded.
Astounded.
Good one. Oh, good one. This has been remarkable, enlightening. I learned so much from everybody when we're together. This is wonderful. Well, Neil, how are we doing? Maybe I'll turn it back to you and we'll continue with our joyous and sacred ritual.
Oh, you don't want to turn it back to me. You're doing fine.
Oh, God bless us all.
Um, do you want to lead us in a little meditation that we could, keep the recording going and then stop the recording after that?
It would be my honor, yes. I'll dig deep and come up with a closing prayer or a continuation prayer. Dear God, God of knowledge, of power, God of love, God of peace, God of harmony and kindliness. All these aspects of God come together as we use our own innate curiosity to invite more knowledge. And the more knowledge we get, the more knowledge we wish to share. So in this spirit of sharing, I give thanks for everyone today for your presence, everyone for your contributions. I love you always. We will keep each other in our thoughts until we get together again. Amen. Amen. Peace profound, and so mote it be.